My current experience as a software engineer kind of extends for the past 15, 16, 17 years now. Currently, it is primarily a front end heavy development using a Backbone JS built out framework. Also, working with Vue.js, specifically with the Vue.js storefront, viewstorefront.io, and working on integrating that with my current employer, Kibo Commerce's in-house APIs, which is a microservices-based API structure. And with that, tying it into Vue Storefront and working on making us a partner over there to make Vue Storefront an option for a headless front-end experience. It does require a little bit of node work as well, and our databases and everything else are a little more segregated from what I'm currently working in. Beyond that, most recently, it's been heavily with React and Java Spring and SQL databases. I believe my last database, it may have been DB2, along with Redis as well. And my current business requirements around the work that I do is I work heavily with our pre-sales and sales divisions to build out proof of concepts to basically build out demos that would be shown to clients that would show off our headless capabilities or our current structure and just like extending the current theme. And as well, currently working on building out a React-based update to our current e-commerce theme. I'm not sure of the history of Agile, but ever since probably I got into IT, everyone has had a different flavor of Agile development in place. Uh, Doing the whole sprints, Scrum, Master integration, working with Jira or Kanban has been a fairly consistent experience. Most often it's been Jira. I've also used Assembla in the past as well as Trello. Currently, I run a custom Kanban board for my group that sits outside of engineering. CI/CD, specifically in my current role, there's not a lot of need for it since it's POCs, nothing's existing long term right now. Generally, anything I make that's going to exist long term gets handed off to the engineering team, and then they work on integrating it with the current processes. Before that, I was with AEP Charge, and with that, like we built out a custom CI/CD process. So we had a group dedicated to it, and then everyone else that worked in individual pods was able to contribute to it. So like my group was the first group there that was basically had enough traffic to justify additional instances. So just running with that, with upgrading the YAML files, working with the CI/CD team to ensure that what we build out conformed to their standards, and as well was able to be integrated with the rest of the projects. And containerization, I've worked with Docker and Kubernetes for the past 4 years, I believe. Most heavily when I was at Abercrombie and Fitch, and then as well at AEP Charge, and now currently using it with Vue Storefront, and also doing a little bit of JBPM. My current role, we're working with microservices and pre-existing web services and APIs. So it's nothing that I've needed to extend or build upon. My prior role with AEP Charge, we built it from the ground up. Again, it was built with Java Spring, and with that, it was a ticketing system. So it was a full ground up CRUD experience to build everything that would handle the standard create, read, update, delete. As well as authentication and the AEP Charge is probably the most complex project I've completed recently, just because of it was totally from the ground up. Everything was built from scratch. Gatsby was used on the front end, but that was a engineering decision brought beforehand, as it was essentially just being used as leveraging some of their configurations inside of Webpack to deliver it. The Java Spring aspect is something that we kind of built from the ground up. From like they just had a Java server spun up, and that was about it. So that's what we continued with. So everything was tied into authentication, individual users. There was multiple roles involved, just to make sure that in that instance we had dispatchers and then as well line workers, and had the appropriate roles assigned to them, so that line workers couldn't make changes to data that only dispatchers should be able to update or control, and as well as controlling like which views that they would see depending when they logged into the website. And again, that was all built on Dockerized instances locally and deployed with a CI/CD pipeline. But yeah, I don't know, it's like from a RESTful API standpoint, it's all pretty straightforward and basic in regards to that. All right, so I did the code test last night, and I'm doing the interview the following morning. The initial stuff around memoization, honestly, it threw me for a little bit of a loop. I've done the memoization stuff a few times in the past. I've used underscore or Lodash memoize functions, and I've had a couple like React hooks. Well, I guess just one React hook written around memoization. So like those were really straightforward. The Mongoose stuff, it's been a little while since I played with the schemas. But the authentication piece, I think, like with that, as I was running through that, the thing that I think I would have liked to have seen, or I didn't want to spend like several hours on it, but I probably would have done something with Passport.js and JWTs to handle the authentication. So I was trying to meet the letter of the requirement of it without doing like a fully fledged solution for just that code test. So that's something I definitely would have refactored on. The rest of them, I feel, were pretty straightforward and would have ran with them as is. Honestly, being able to like look at the code that I wrote to talk about a little bit more would be a little easier, just because it's, you code so much, it's easy for everything to blur together. So yeah, like the initial stuff as is. The Mongoose stuff, I would have split out the routes. I mean, everything was living in one file. And the tests, I probably would have made more verbose as well. Like those were pretty much meeting the letter of the law of the, here's the expectations for it, hit these goals. I would also handle maybe a few edge cases, or definitely negative use cases, to say like, when this happens, we expect this. When this happens, we don't expect this to happen. Pretty much, I love kayaking. I ride my bike a lot. Past few years, I was in Pelotonia, not 2020 clearly. I play guitar a little bit, and I do pen and ink drawings. And of course, I'm a dad of two, so they keep me pretty busy in terms of going to the gym. My eldest is on the swim team, so we go swimming. And I enjoy cooking a lot at home, which is a little harder with a picky eater. My oldest son has zero interest in that, but my youngest loves trying whatever new foods or new recipes I come up with. Or I should say I make. I don't really come up with anything from scratch. And yeah, that's where a lot of my focus goes. I play a little bit of video games. Again, two boys, that's definitely part of modern culture and something I grew up with. So I game a little bit. Most recently, it was Cyberpunk 2077. Yeah, and I think that's kind of it. So also like hiking. Hocking Hills isn't too far, and Yellow Springs isn't too far, and I love visiting there. Just to get outside, it's beautiful areas. And I'm looking at kayaking in Michigan, hopefully in 2021. But depending on COVID and everything, is where that's kind of falling. But in the interim, like I've got a couple rivers near me, so when it's nice out, it's easy enough to get out on the rivers or the lakes, or ride my bike from my house in the north end of Columbus down to the center of Columbus to hit up some breweries, grab a beer or grab a whiskey, and then bike home.